So, I've set up one of my newer acquisitions, Afrika, standard combat series by the gamers. I played this game once, not long after it came out actually, and I really, really liked it, but I didn't want to spring the money at the time. I was not a wealthy man by any means at that point. And it's very similar to a game that I already had and that I love a great deal, the Desert Fox, which came out in one of the S&T magazines. This is a little bit lighter, although the map is larger. There's no question there. But it still seems to convey the major importance of mobility, of the fluidity of the campaign, and of the supply rules and the particular limitations, especially on the Axis during this campaign. It adds a few neat aspects. In addition to what you'd normally expect, what I'm used to from the S&T game. One is it adds Rommel, which was added as an optional rule in the S&T game. It allows for Axis naval shipping through the coast, through the coastal ports, in limited amounts. The Allies also have this. They had that. In Desert Fox. I have really high hopes for enjoying this game. It's got a simpler, more standard combat results table, and a much, much simpler, but I think much cooler variable replacements situation where both sides get, instead of a fixed amount of replacement points each turn, they have to roll for them, and especially with the Allies, that can end up with them being forced to withdraw. I think that's a nice little piece to the game. Desert Fox, you would get units and have to withdraw them the next turn, and you knew this, and thus you knew exactly how to use them. With this, you have some choice with what you get to withdraw, but so you can withdraw the units that you have in your back areas, but you also you're not forced into hunting down a particular unit off the map and this, that, and the other. So I think overall it's a lot easier. The supply rules are a little easier, and the combat rules, from what I remember of the SCS when I played Rock of the Marne, should be a little lighter. I really like the combat system in Desert Fox. I think it was phenomenally interesting, but it relied so much on factors of morale, of combat shifts, etc. It was a very odd system and hard to get a grasp on. You also had to count up and really carefully get your numbers right in that. Now, one thing that I don't like about SCS, and to tell you the truth, all gamers, the OCS as well, is that their standard rounding rule, which is basically if it's 0.5 or more, it rounds up. So if you have above 3-2 odds, that goes to a 2-1 chart. Now in the SCS, that's actually not so bad. In the OCS, when you start having 3-2s and stuff like that on the table, it becomes a pain in the ass because you really have to have a calculator to figure the odds quickly. It's usually very, very easy to figure out in a normal game 3-2, maybe 5-4, 2-1, whatever. In this, it takes a little bit more calculation, because you have to bring it down at least 1 decimal point. And when you start dealing with 3 to 2s and 5 to 4s and things that aren't clearly all numbers, you may have to take it to 2 decimal points. And that kind of division is just a pain in the butt. Okay, well, we're going to get started. We see an initial Italian advance towards Marsa Matruh. I didn't engage mainly because you can't count the troops in the stacks, and this is actually one of the problems I have with the Gamers games. Once you know the game, you have a better feel for what's a good force and what's not. Yeah, I could look, but it didn't feel like I could get enough up there to make the assault to begin with. Anyway, that was my assumption. Now it'll be the Allied turn. After 2 turns of play, we see the Italians have set up a siege of Marsa Matruh. They're beginning to hit the supply hump, and that's really a problem for them. In the first 6 turns of this game, and they're only starting turn 3, if Italian units are out of supply, they just surrender. Later, they follow the normal supply rules, which aren't as big a problem. One big issue with the game that I'm having has nothing to do with the game itself. It has to do with the particular copy I have. The guy who owned it before me laminated the map. Not only does that make storage a pain in the ass, the thing's a little poochier and harder to cope with, and it's very, very slick. And boy, is that a problem. I was kind of curious how a laminated map would be. Now I know better than to ever buy one. And if you're someone who's thinking about one, think real hard, because this is the first time I've really felt the need, and I've had some pretty poochy maps, for putting a piece of plexiglass or something on top of it. I don't have one, but I really, really want one for this. And strangely enough, you would think, well, it's more protection, and it certainly is, but without the plexiglass, it's unplayable, or nearly so. It's really tough to deal with. Siege of Marsa Matruh continues. The British are out of supply there, which means if they don't get some shipping in there soon, it's just going to surrender. On the other hand, the Italian supply situation just keeps getting worse. I think I'm trying to recreate the historical situation. We'll see the entire Italian army surrendering. Oh well. British are fortifying along the El Alamein line. It's such good defensive terrain that it seems like a good speed bump. It's not like the Italians are going to make it to Alexandria, no matter what. And it's probably wasting supply I could use at some other time. But I would not like to see the Italians get through there if possible. And the Brits really have very little problem with supply in this game, I would guess. I'm seeing the supply system, it's kind of painful, but nowhere near as much as Desert Fox, for example. What's the pain? The pain is, excuse me, basically just counting up the counters each turn. And it wouldn't be bad if the map weren't so damn slick. These Italian units that I'm bringing around Benghazi, those are really a mistake. I'm not sure what to do about them now, because it's really unlikely I'm going to be able to keep them in supply, but turning them around is going to be tough too. This is a tough early part of the scenario for the Axis. Maybe they should not be advancing at all, but wouldn't feel like I'm playing Africa correctly if they didn't. January of 41, and I'm beginning to feel like I've got a disaster in the making. Marsa Matruh has fallen. The Italians are there, but my Italian supply situation is down to one under that counter over there and one in Bardia. And then some additional points back in Benghazi and along the road. Not a lot. Basically, the shipping number for the Axis came out as 1. That's really unlikely, but it can happen, and it's bad. And they were unable to get anything up to the front, and I'm beginning to worry that I may just run out. I'm certainly not going to press the offensive at this point. There's not much point in it anyway. Got, three divisions sitting there in that ridge line. That's not going to be easy to move. And then I start thinking, all those Italian divisions with their three supply requirement, they eat as much as 3 other units, probably because of all the pasta, end up being a real problem possibly later in the game. That it might be best to lose a bunch of these. I'm not sure. Right now, I'm not going to try to game the situation. I'm certainly not going to try to lose them. And I'm not going to ship more Italians onto the board, leaving them back in Tripoli. Now, they still eat supplies in Tripoli and still cause problems there. So, it's tough to see.